All right, guys, and welcome back. And this will be the part where we will actually start hacking the flash loan together. And we will do this together with my friend and colleague from Brazil, Rob. And well, you all know me, and this is Rob. Rob, maybe tell a little bit about yourself.
Hello guys, I'm Rob from Brazil. Hola. I'm a Solidity developer. I'm working with Ethereum like in the past 2 years, and I'm glad to be here.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so Rob, me, we did some projects, and we also worked together on this flash loan assignment. And this will be the first series for the basic flash loan arbitrage, and we make our arbitrage. So for this basic flash loan, the first thing in this course that we will do is we will get some test ETH. Then when we get some test ETH, we will get some test AVE DAI to actually pay the fees. And then we will perform a flash loan, and we're going to try to get 1 million DAI in our flash loan and repay it. So this is what we will be covering today. All right, Rob, let's get some test ETH to get started with.
Yeah. Okay, so we should go to the faucet.covan.network. You should have a login with GitHub here, and then you should paste your address. Okay, so if we can check, I have 0 if, and now I have 1 if after the faucet.
Perfect. Yeah, so this you should do this because we need to pay our gas fees, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay, cool. Next up, we're gonna get our test AVE tokens, so we can pay the fees for the flash loan itself. So we're gonna, in this case, we're gonna do a flash loan from with DAI. So we're gonna actually get some DAI to pay our fees to the contract that we will deploy.
Okay, so we should go to testnet.aave.com, should select faucet, should select your DAI contract, and then you should submit the transaction.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect. So that always takes a while to mint, but it should be there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then we should add the token to our MetaMask if it does not appear directly. So what you should do, you should go to the Etherscan, click on the DAI, and copy this code here, and add as a custom token into your MetaMask. So should appear here, DAI. And then, okay, nice. We have 10,000 DAI that we just got from the faucet.
Perfect, perfect. That's nice. Now now we have all our now we're all set up. So what we're gonna do now, as already explained before, we're gonna open Remix. And in Remix, we will create a new file and import the simple, the basic flash loan contract into the Remix environment. Yeah. All right, so as you see here, we opened up our Remix environment, and Rob copied the code that we see in, also see in the GitHub page, where you see the Solidity contract in the sample folder. We copy that into our environment, and Rob is gonna explain now what the code exactly does.
Okay, guys, so as we know, we need like the first line here, importing like the compiler that we are going to use for this contract. Second thing, we need to import 3 different contracts from Aave. 2 of them are interfaces, one for the lending pool and one for the lending pool address provider. And the third one is what they call loan receiver base, that we are going to inheritance here and initiate if this address here. And what is this address from? This address is the provider address. And where I got this address, you can check this address on the Aave market. If you go to the developers page, you select the Covan network here, and then you can get the address from here, lending pool address provider. So we can copy this code, and that's the address that we are using to initiate the flash loan receiver base here. Okay, so next, basically to perform a flash loan, you need two different functions. The first one is the flash loan function. That's the function, external function that you as a user are going to call. And the second one is the execution operation. That function here is going to be called by the Aave's contract, and that's the function that we are going to use to repay the flash loan. So one function to ask for the loan, and another second function to repay the flash loan. It's important to mention that this function here needs to be named execution operation. That's on the Aave's documentation. But that first function here, you can give the name whenever you want. Okay, so import the three contracts, instantiate your first contract, iterate and initialize the flash loan receiver base with the provider address that you got from the Aave developers page. And you need to have two functions. The first one to ask for the loan, the second one to repay the flash loan. Let's go through the first function. In this function here, we are going to have two input parameters. The first one is the amount that I want to get borrowed, and the second one is the address, is the reserve address of the token that we want to get the borrow, like the loan. So if I want to get loan with DAI, I should have the DAI address here. If I want to get a loan from BAT reserve, I need to have the BAT here, the BAT address. Okay, so I need to define the exchange address, the Aave's exchange address, and to get the exchange address, I need to call the address provider contract and the get lending pool. This parameter is from this inheritance here, is coming from the flash loan receiver base.
Yeah. So basically you're getting the address that we see up here. It's basically using that address in this function call.
Okay, perfect. And now I need to instantiate the exchange itself. So I need the interface that I was importing up there, and I need that exchange address that I just got. And then with the exchange initiated, I can call the flash loan function. That function, by the way, it have 4 parameters. The first one is the address that I want to receive my loan. In this case, I'm sending with the contract address itself. The second address is the reserve token that I'm getting the loan. In this case, I'm going to use DAI here, DAI address. The third parameter is the amount that I'm getting the loan. And the fourth one is a special parameter to uh, to send some delegate call or some complex function here. In this case, I'm defining this parameter up here as a bytes params, and I'm sending like a null 0x0 because we are not going to use these parameters now.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we covered our my first flash function here. We called the flash loan, and then after that, the Aves contract are going to call back our contract with the execution operation function. So there you have like these four parameters: the reserve address, in our case DAI, the amount that we just got the loan, the fee that we will need to add this fee to the amount, and the parameters that I just said that we are not going to use in this case, in this example.
Yeah.
Here is the part of the code that if we was going to use the flash loan to any of the use case that we can do, for example, collateral swaps or the arbitrage that we are going to explain in further the next videos, the code was going to be here, to paste here. But in our case, for this simple example here, we are not going to do anything. And then in the end, we have to repay the loan. In order to repay the loan, you need to repay adding the fee. So that's why we did this operation here. And then to finalize, you have to call this function here, trans funds back to internal pool. That function is also inherited from flash loan receiver base. And then you need to call with two parameters. The first one is the reserve, again, the DAI reserve in this case, and the total debt.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let's go. Let's deploy this contract. Let's try first time. And let's see what's happened. Okay, so you should go to the third, going top to down, you should go to the third button here, deploy and run transactions on your remix. You should set your environment. Usually the environment default is JavaScript VM, but in our case, we are going to use Kovan. So you should select injected Web3, and your MetaMask should be set it to Kovan test network here. You should select from the list the contract that you want to deploy, and then you press deploy button. Okay, the contract deployed now. So here we can check the functions that we have access to. Many of these functions is not showing the code because that function is coming from the flash loan receiver base. But the important function here is the my first flash. So we need two inputs. One is the amount, and the other one is the token that we are going to borrow. So let's paste the DAI address here, and now we need the DAI. Remember that the DAI amount you need to add like the 18 decimals.
Yeah.
So let's check the transaction. Okay, so Remix is already telling me that the transaction is going to fail. And do you know, guys, why this transaction is going to fail?
Yeah. What do you think? a good question. Yeah.
So yeah, we can check on Conval.
Because what's important to understand is that what's happened now, basically, we initiated the contract, we called the functions, and then the contract initiate this function. But Robert, why doesn't it work?
Yeah, so the contract reverted here. And the reason is because we didn't add the fee. So that's the magic of flash loan. Like if you don't have enough money to repay back the loan with adding the fee, the transaction is going to be reverted. So now we should try the same function, but now I'm going to add some DAI to this contract here, and then we are going to try again. So in order to do that, I should copy the contract address, click in here. I should go to my MetaMask. I should go to my DAI wallet here. And I should click send, select, paste the address. And in that case, I'm going to send 100 DAI to that contract. Okay, loading.
Yeah. And 100 is not, if we want to do like when, as you see in the description in our GitHub page, we did like a $1 million flash loan, but then you pay like higher fees, right? So the higher the flash loan, the more fees you will also have to pay.
Yeah, so we are going to borrow 10,000, and I think 100 is enough. Let's check. By the way, you should increase your gas limit here. Sometimes we get some errors from out of gas.
Yeah, and now we basically talk to the contract. The contract gets this whole pile. There we go. So the contract gets this whole pile of money, and in the time that we have that money, we can do with it whatever we want to do. But in this case, in this example, we just take it, we pay it back, and we pay the fee to Aave to thank them that we have been using their reserve pool. Yeah, that's basically it.
And works.
Yeah, nice guys. So we borrowed 10,000 DAI for basically the amount of the block time, right? And then after it, we paid it back with a little bit of a fee to borrow their from their pool. And there's also pools, but they're a little bit more complex to integrate that have zero fees, like DYDX, etc. But that's a different implementation. Yeah, so this is really cool. And we will explore later in our second video in the arbitrage splash and create your own arbitrage. We'll explore more in depth what we can do exactly with flash loans. But for now, yeah, this is basically the basic setup. If you have any questions about this assignment, and because in the last part of this category, we will have the assignment that you guys can try this out yourself. If there's any questions, issues, or maybe feature requests, you can submit an issue on GitHub. Rob, and maybe if you go to GitHub, you can show that. Yeah.
So we can go here to our GitHub. You can check our README.
Yeah.
And you can submit your issues here.
Yeah. And if you submit an issue, we will either me or Rob will talk with you and fix the problem or help you out with questions. And of course, also you can always interact on the Toshi Times forum. and we will also respond there. All right. So yeah, thanks guys. And in our next video, in our next category, we will do a arbitrage flash loan, and we will also create our own arbitrage opportunity and also see if we can do a flash loan on that as well. All right. Thank you and see you in the next video.